Naming a pet can be difficult, so I've decided that each month I will come up with a list of male, female and unisex names for pets. Each month we will base it on a different theme, and since we're starting in December and a lot of people receive pets as gifts this time of year, I figured the first subject will be based around Christmas. Now if you're like me and you don't want to be reminded about Christmas throughout the year, but you'd like a pet name linked to Christmas, then this list should be very helpful. I've delved into the history of Christmas and looked at different traditions around the world to come up with 7 girl names, 7 boy names and 7 unisex names. So let's start off with the girls. Number 1 is La Befana or Befana. Now I'm sure if you're Italian you will pronounce this so much better than me, because this actually originates from Italian folklore and it's an old lady who is a gift giver. The only problem is when you translate her name back into English, it does translate as the witch. But if you've got a pet between Halloween and Christmas, I think it kind of suits it. So I think it's quite a pretty name anyway. The next name is Belle. Even though this is obviously from Disney film Beauty and the Beast, Belle actually translates from French into beautiful. And it also reminds me of Jingle Bells. So I think there's a little link there. The next one is Brumalia or Brumalia. Now this is actually an ancient Roman winter solstice festival honouring Saturn and Ceres. It's a month-long celebration starting on the 24th of November and it includes nighttime feasting, drinking and merriment. The next one is Cindy Lou, obviously from The Grinch. The next is Holly. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's a nice normal name that nobody would totally link to Christmas, but then you think of Christmas and you think Holly, or at least I do. The next one is Joy, because isn't that what this festival is all about? And finally, Sugar Plum. This reminds me of the Sugar Plum Fairy from the Nutcracker, which was composed by Tchaikovsky in 1892. But also it really reminds me of this old film. I think it's from like 2001 and it's Barbie and the Nutcracker. And I believe it's set on Christmas Eve, but it always reminds me of Christmas, even though I was probably 8 when I watched it. But yeah. That's what Sugar Plum... And also, I call all my pets Sugar Plum. I don't know why, but it's a cute name. Now on to boys' names. And the first one is Balthazar, which is apparently one of the names of the 3 kings who visits Jesus in a nativity story. Now, when I did the nativity story, I had to do the play every year for 7 years. And if you were one of the 3 kings, you were just known as King 1, King 2, King 3. But I never got a main role in those plays. Like literally I'd be like a robin, a frog. One year I was a Christmas cracker, then I was a triangle. I want a triangle, I had to hit a triangle. I mean, it's just embarrassing, you know, when the class is too big that you're getting roles like that. But nevertheless, I think it's a really cool name. The next one is Blitzen. Now the reason I like this, obviously it's one of Santa's reindeer, but also when you translate it, it means flash, which I think is pretty cool. This probably comes from the fact that Donner und Blitz means thunder and lightning. Next we have Buddy from the fantastic Christmas film Elf. Then we have Ebenezer or Ebby, and once again this is from a book and a film. This is Scrooge's first name. Ebenezer Scrooge is from A Christmas Carol. The next one is kind of dark. It's called Krampus, and you may have heard of that recently because there's a film coming out called Krampus. But it's basically the beast, or I would say guy, but it's probably a beast, that goes around with Saint Nick and scares children into being nice. And trust me, this thing is kind of terrifying. There are other stories that it whips children and kidnaps them and takes them to hell. So it does have a dark side to it. But I was thinking, if you had like a fully black leopard gecko, it sort of looks like Krampus. Or if you had a Diablo Blanco, which means white devil, that sort of links in as well. So that's kind of cool. It's kind of dark. If you like the dark side of Christmas, it's pretty cool. The next one is Odin, which is a Viking god of war, and he rides on a magical horse with 8 legs, and Santa originally had 8 reindeer until the 20th century introduction of Rudolph. So also, the other great link to this is apparently his hunting cry is ho ho. So you can kind of see how Odin and Santa link in together. So if you didn't want to call your pet Santa, which is obviously Christmassy, you could say Odin, which I think is a really cool name. And the final one is Tomty, and I really love this. I think it's such a cute little name. Its origins is Scandinavian. He's a little gift giver. He's about 3 foot tall. He looks a little bit like a gnome, and he'll leave gifts by your door, and in return he'll get porridge and butter. Now onto unisex names, because if you have a reptile, it can be difficult to know straight away whether you have a male or female, so you might want to opt for a unisex name. So number 1 is Cinnamon. I guess this could be boys or girls, I'm not really sure, but Cinnamon definitely reminds me of Christmas because I hang little cinnamon sticks on the Christmas tree. Next is Frankie. Now I've chose Frankie to shorten the word frankincense, and obviously in the nativity story a wise man gave Jesus frankincense. Frankincense is actually dried tree sap, which is then burnt as incense. The next is Frosty, sort of reflecting on the weather you sort of typically get this time of year. Although, if you're in Australia or anywhere in the southern hemisphere, you're probably being boiling hot right now, so lucky you. The next is Gizmo, because Gizmo always reminds me of Gremlins, which is one of my favourite Christmas films. Then we have Noel or Noel. Now that's Christmas in French, but I figured you could spell it like Noel as in a guy, or you can spell it as Noel as in a female, but spelling it differently to how it actually is spelled in French, but it sounds the same, if you get what I mean. Then we have Robin, because robins are sort of associated with Christmas, even though I sort of see them throughout the entire year. Once again, I have them hanging up in my Christmas tree, so yeah. The last name is quite a long one. It's Saturnalia or Saturnalia, but you can shorten it or make other names from it, such as Saturn, Nalia or Nali. I think this links into Christmas quite well, since a lot of traditions that we do to this day come from this festival, including decorating our trees, decorating with the colour gold, eating large quantities of food, drinking, caroling, decorating our houses with garlands and wreaths, and most importantly, it's the reason we celebrate on the 25th of December. Basically, the Christians wanted to convert the Roman pagans who celebrated Saturnalia, and in order to compromise, they agreed that the pagans could carry on with their traditions if they converted. And so the church decided that the 25th of December would be the day they celebrated Jesus' birthday, so it can coincide with all the different festivities around the world, which were mainly pagan, that celebrated the winter solstice. Actually, its pagan roots were so well known that for a while Christmas was actually banned in certain places of America because they knew that it had no link to biblical text. So yeah, overall I think it's a pretty cool name that has a massive link to Christmas, but it's not too obviously Christmassy. So when you're in like summertime and you don't want to think about Christmas, you can still have a gecko that has that link to Christmas, whether it is like born around Christmas or you received it around Christmas. Anyway, I hope you found a name, and if you have any suggestions for next month's theme, let me know in the comment section below. If you're getting a pet for Christmas, then you're very lucky, but remember, a pet is for life and not just for Christmas. If you have a leopard gecko, they live over 20 years, so it's quite a commitment. Anyway, I hope you all enjoy your December, whatever you are celebrating, and thank you very much for watching.